Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. I am your host, Lonnie Jones. My wife Jackie and I moved to the city of Huntsville in 1986 for me to be a youth and family minister. I have been a minister since 1980. I have served in this community as a police chaplain assigned to a SWAT team since 1992, and I've been in private practice as a licensed professional counselor since 1998. I'm also an adventure educator and an avid outdoorsman. I dabble in rock climbing and I goof around with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Our life has been full of many wonderful experiences and some just outright adventures. I used to write about those things in a little church bulletin article. So now instead of asking you to read those things, we're just going to talk about them in our podcast. And as we talk about them, we're going to talk about the facts. The facts lead to concepts, and the concepts lead to application. One caveat about the facts is, for the most part, we're going to tell you the facts just as they happened. But every now and then, we're going to tell you the way other people have told us they remember it happening with a little bit of embellishment. It's all good, clean fun and for educational purposes. Thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoy Keeping Up with Jones. The Jack Zorn Scholarship is named after the founder of Lads to Leaders, who is also a Faulkner alumnus. This scholarship is meant to help address the minister shortage in the Churches of Christ. It provides a completely free tuition to qualified students who are majoring in either Bible or ministry and are committed to becoming a minister after graduation. Applicants who have been accepted for admission and completed all scholarship requirements by December the 15th each year will receive priority consideration. You can apply for this at faulkner.edu and click Apply Now. Faulkner.edu, click Apply Now, or for more information and a review of the requirements, visit faulkner.edu/Zorn, Z-O-R-N, faulkner.edu/Zorn, or contact admissions at faulkner.edu. Faulkner University is a sponsor of Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. Jones. It was said, with all the absence of emotion of a Vulcan, but carried the severity of a Dunkard minister. I was 45 feet up in a tree, tethered to a limb and leaning back in the crisp fall air, surrounded by mature hardwoods and cobalt blue sky. I was supervising a group of people on a ropes course. These were participants on the old Kill Mountain course, and this course had nestled into a beautiful hardwood valley. You walk down about a half a mile hill, and there's a stand of hickories and a stand of red oaks, and these are great, big, huge, mature trees. The tree I'm sitting in would require a 39-inch auger bit to drill all the way through to build a ropes course element. I'm sitting in the high safety spot. I've got instructors on the ground who are providing supervision and safety for the people who are clipping in and going up toward the tree. And I'm here off the ground in case somebody panics or in case the prophecies of Edward Aloysius Murphy Jr. were to come true. I looked down at Lisa Carper. She's the one who spoke my name. And she did that thing where you hold up two fingers in the peace sign and you point to your own eyes, you touch your own eyes, and then you point with your fingers so that the person you're speaking to can look at the thing that you're looking at. And what she pointed out made my heart freeze. She pointed at a lady who will remain nameless, but her initials are Donna Adair. She's a school secretary, and she attended our church, and she was there with a church group, and she had climbed into the high course. And she's now standing on a platform 35 feet in the ground. She's standing on a platform that's 35 feet above the ground, and this thing's about the size of the bottom of a seat in a church folding chair. She's standing on this platform, and she's either supposed to be connected to the safety rope that helped her get into the tree, or she's supposed to be connected via two steel locking carabiners and a lanyard attached to her harness to a safety cable above her. What Lisa has pointed out to me made my heart freeze. She's standing on the platform. She has removed her safety rope, and she has failed to attach her lanyards and her carabiners to the safety cable above her. In addition to Murphy's Law, anything that can go wrong will go wrong is another thing that we like to add, that is Mr. Gravity never sleeps. Now, I consider myself a professional communicator, a teacher, an instructor, a rappel master, and at this point in time, I have a spotless safety record as a ropes course owner and facilitator, and all this is now in question and hinges on what Miss Adair is going to do next, and the adage of an aerospace engineer who is credited with what we call Murphy's Law. And Murphy's Law simply states anything that can go wrong will go wrong. The actual original epigram stated in the original form is, if there are two or more ways to do something, and one of those results in catastrophe, then someone will do it that way. That's what I'm looking at. I'm staring at Miss Adair, and she has not only done one thing that could result in catastrophe, but she's done all the things that can result in catastrophe. Truth be told, she has stopped being friends with Mr. Murphy and is now actually besties and holding hands with a guy named Finagle. And depending on how deep you want to dive into the subject, you have a law called Finagle's Law. And in part of his law, it even says that inanimate objects are out to get us. Finagle's variable is expressed mathematically as the correct answer divided by your own answer. But it's actually popularly known as Finagle's law of dynamic negatives. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong at the worst possible moment. And that's what I'm staring at. So you could ignore the thing about clipping into the rope on the ground, and somebody can say, hey, you need to clip that in. You could ignore the thing about clipping into the cable above you while you're still connected to your safety rope, and somebody can say, hey, clip those in. But as it stands, she's not connected to the rope. She's standing on a platform the size of a church chair, and she's holding her carabiners in her hand, and she's saying, what do I do with these thingies? People who are not in a state of panic tend to remain so until they are shouted at or told they're in danger. Whatever you do, don't move. You need to hook yourself in or you're going to die. Those are not helpful admonitions in these type situations. So being the cool professional that I am, and being adverse to people being injured, myself being sued or killed by grieving spouses, I myself did not panic. But neither did I move. I didn't even make a step toward her. I spoke very calmly. Miss Donna, yes. We're doing a tree growth study. Would you reach around that tree and see if those two lanyards will attach to one another? Which she did. And then everyone started breathing again. I ran across the two cables that separated us, and I fixed the problem. Much, much later, end of the day, everybody's gone home. I'm filling out an after-action report in our safety log. That's when I threw up. Murphy's Law and Finagle's Law aren't proven. They just seem to be true. And in all actuality, there's this debate as to whether they're actually factual or whether or not they're balanced in the universe of random stuff by a thing called Yhprum's Law. Yhprum. Yhprum's Law. And it basically states that anything that can work will work. It's originated by a guy named Richard Zuckhauser. He's a professor of political economy from Harvard University, and originally stated his law says sometimes systems that should not work nevertheless. Now, for those of you who aren't taking notes, you will realize that Yhprum is not a rabbi and is not a Yiddish word for anything, but Yhprum is simply Murphy spelled backwards. Yhprum's Law is the thing legends are made of. You see the old school mountaineers, the first guys to climb El Capitan, the first guys to climb Mount Blanc, the first guys to climb the Matterhorn, the first guys to climb the north face of the Eiger known as the Murder Wall, the dudes who summited K2 and Everest and Annapurna. Those early mountaineers, They knew the ropes they were using, the natural fiber ropes, not the modern synthetic fiber kern mantle ropes. They knew those ropes wouldn't catch you. They didn't expect those natural fiber ropes to hold them. They knew that in a fall, it was accepted and expected that those ropes would break. But sometimes they didn't. In fact, sometimes, and when you needed them the most, they didn't break. They weren't supposed to work, but they used them anyway because a slim chance is better than no chance at all, to quote the famous line in the comedy. So you're saying there's a chance. They weren't going to arrest your fall. They weren't going to save your life. But sometimes they did. This is also the stuff heroes are made of. This is where Mr. Spock tells Captain Kirk, the odds of this are 3,457.7 to 1. One guy, a super Trek nerd, actually crunched the numbers from Star Trek and concluded that Mr. Spock's logic was anti-correlated with reality. The less likely he tells Captain Kirk something is, the more likely it is to happen. 83% accurate, and more certainly he states something that is less likely to happen is not going to happen. So there's 3,457.7 to 1 that we can't do this. They're going to do it with flying colors. And yet if he says, hey, we're surely going to die, they don't die unless you're wearing a red uniform. You may even remember the famous Han Solo expression. And C-3PO in that robotic voice says that the possibility of successfully navigating an asteroid field is approximately 3,720 to 1. And Captain Solo responds, never tell me the odds. There's a popular saying now, and I'll have to modify it a little bit, but it talks about people who do stupid things or egregious things, and it's modified but stated, fool around and find out. And I guess that's true if you're talking about reckless abandonment, caution thrown to the wind. But I'm not talking about that. I want to talk about living in a world where you're not in a perpetual state of fear of failure. I'm talking about living in a world, and rather than letting Murphy and Finagle be the gospel, we should encourage in ourselves some odd-defying, probability-beating, calculated risk-taking, and actually find out. And this is especially true if you're raising children or coaching young people. If you limit what is possible to what has already been done or how it has already been done, then you have no room for progress. You have no room for invention. You have no room for innovation. In fact, you have no room for growth and you have no room for maturity. There's a book. It's entitled The Anxious Generation. It's by a guy named Jonathan Haidt, Haidt. And he talks about that as we grow as people, we basically have two modes. We have a discovery mode and we have a defense mode. And as we mature and as we grow, we cycle in and out of discovery mode and defense mode. But really, we should spend way more time in discovery mode than we do in defense mode. You see, we cycle in and out, and we get more pleasure and are more stimulated, and we learn more in discovery mode. We develop more confidence and we learn more about safety in discovery mode. But if we stay perpetually in defense mode, then it's not about learning about safety. It's simply that we focus on danger. And people who only focus on danger grow up and develop anxiety and fear. Watch any predator, a baby cat, a baby fox, a baby wolf. Watch how they play. Seek, stalk, pounce. But watch a prey animal. Watch a little sheep or a little rabbit or a squirrel. They're always looking. They're always skittish. If you approach even a little bitty dog and he feels a little threatened, a dog in discovery mode will bark and growl at you, even at a little stage. But all of the prey animals always run. You see, discovery mode is about learning, exploring, and finding the limit. And honestly, you can't be safe until you know danger. In the book, The Anxious Generation, he talks about the difference in having a play-based childhood versus having an internet or a phone-based childhood. You see, children need to have free play, unsupervised play, allow them to go outside and discover that ants bite and bees sting. Blackberries have thorns. Barbed wire fences will grab you. Fences that don't have barbed wire might bite you because they're electric. If one never climbs too high, rides too fast, attempts the impossible, then the first time they encounter adversity, they are crushed by paralyzing anxiety and fear. Children who don't explore, children who don't reach out, children who don't try new things, children who don't experience failure, they grow up being fearful. They grow up being depressed. They grow up and can become neurotic. The book, The Anxious Generation, talks about raising children that are anti-fragile. You see, anti-fragile children are children who have learned that you can get a bump or a bruise or a cut or a scrape. You can fall and you can crash, and it's not the end of the world. See, when you have security from adults, the security that we provide as adults is not seclusion or isolation. Security is this home base from which we explore. And we get away from base and we discover something, we come back to base. And we get away from base and we do something and we come back to base. But in an attempt to insulate children from harm, many parents have isolated them from risk. Our lives must include some risk. Our lives must include a little bit of fear. Hey, I climbed too high. I went too fast. I jumped off too soon. It must involve a little stress. I'm afraid to try this, but everybody else seems to be safe when they do it. I got to overcome that. And sometimes you try it and you fail. Hey, the angle of that ramp was a little too steep. And our lives must not only include those things, but they must include a little bit of teasing and some bullying, or we don't know how to navigate social situations in the real world. In fact, as unfortunate as it is, sometimes our lives must include some exclusion. And if we don't experience those things, fear and stress and failure and teasing and bullying and exclusion, we don't have a balanced brain diet of experiences. And it's those experiences that transform us from dependence to independence, from parent-reliant to self-reliant. You look at the societies that have rites of passages, the societies that have things where girls become women and boys become warriors. Those rites of passages turn girls into women and boys into men. And these are trials, not clearly laid out trails. Remember, it's your job to prepare your children for the path, not prepare the path for your children. And by the way, you'll notice in all those societies where they have these rites of passage, girls never become boys and boys never become girls. Children become adults. Now, when this doesn't happen, when we don't have a wide range of experiences that teach our children to be anti-fragile, then children never leave base. See, children must have a safe base to explore from and return back to. In anti-fragile children, it's the cycle of reaching out and returning back to comfort and leaving again, and then it begins to increase not only in frequency, but how far away from base they go and how long they stay away from base before they come back. They go further and they stay longer until they are finally self-reliant. They can self-comfort, they can self-soothe, and they can navigate otherwise overwhelming sensations of fear and anxiety. They go from, I'm not going to try this because I'm afraid it won't work, to it doesn't look like it will work, but let's test it out. Let's try it and see. And in either scenario, success or failure, there is a lesson rather than the prison of, let's not let you be exposed to anything unpleasant. Children who never experience the unpleasant, those insulated from stress or distress, disappointment, loss, or failure, learn not to explore. They learn to expect the worst. They never experience any risk. And because of that, they are fragile physically, emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually. The neuroplasticity of the developing brains are affected and formed, and they are formed greatly and impacted greatly by risk and anxiety, as well as they are by confidence and secureness. Now, which one do you want to have? Which one do you want your children to have? Intentional adversity creates resilience. Unexpected outcomes are what creates thinkers and innovators and adults. Children in defense mode only see danger and obstacles. They only see reasons to stay on base, just never leave home. They only see reasons to stop, turn back, go back to base, and quit. Children who are guided by their parents and live more in discovery mode, they don't really see obstacles. They don't just focus on what could go wrong, and they don't just look at what won't work, but they tend to look at solutions and problems of going over, going around, going under, or going through, or just trying it even though it doesn't look like it'll work. They're not burdened by avoiding fear and anxiety, but they learn how to manage fear and anxiety as they discovered what they used to see as boundaries, what they used to see as limits in their capabilities. When they encounter something like that and they've got a growth mindset and they are living in discovery mode because they have a safe place to leave and a safe place to return, and it's safe to leave, it's safe to return. Instead of seeing limits in their capabilities, they don't see obstacles, but they merely see everything in life as an opportunity. And then they don't live by Murphy's Law. Everything that can go wrong will go wrong. They live by the opposite of Murphy's Law. That, hey, you never know till you try. Using the tool of shortwave radio, World Christian Broadcasting literally covers the world every day with the gospel. They use 2 large curtain antennas. One is located in Anchor Point, Alaska, and the other in Madagascar. They send out messages that are recorded at their international home in Franklin, Tennessee. They make available 40 hours of broadcast every day. The broadcasts are made in English, Chinese, Russian, Spanish, Portuguese, Korean, English for Africa, and Arabic. They would love for your group to visit them. You can bring your ladies group, your youth group, or your men's group. Just give them a call at 615-371-8707, 615-371-8707, or you can go to 3W's and a dot, worldchristian.org, find the Donate Here button, and make a financial contribution to support this work that literally covers the world every day with the gospel. World Christian Broadcasting, in cooperation with Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure.